tonight. But thank you everyone here for being here today. My name is Megan. I'm the Assistant Director of Orientation and Family Programs. We've been doing these Eagle Family Hours for the past probably 8 months or so. And so we're still trying to get some traction on what these look like, but we're really just trying to gear our topics on what parents and families are interested in and, the time that would best be appropriate for them. So right now being the end of the spring quarter, I think a lot of students are starting to think like, oh, next year, maybe I could potentially study abroad. Wouldn't that be fun? So yeah, that's kind of why we planned this one at this time of the year. But with that being said, I'm just going to hand it over to Kristina and Gina and their team and let them share their amazing wisdom.
Yeah, well, thank you, Megan, for that introduction. And thanks everyone for attending. So happy to have you. And hopefully you guys find discussion really interesting today and have lots of questions for us. So basically, we're going to do some brief introductions. We're going to do the discussion and you'll have a chance to ask any question that you can imagine. So first off, Gina, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. So my name's Gina Petrie. I'm the Director of Global Student Services. And as you can see from some of my photos, I'm a travel addict. I love to experience different places. It's actually, I think it's part of my identity. I have some fun pictures here, me in the back of a truck in Nicaragua. That's if I'm often in the back of a truck in Nicaragua. And in Venice, a beautiful scene there on the beach in Las Salinas, Nicaragua, and then another from, I think that's the plague column from Vienna, somewhere in Vienna. But anyways, I support students with education abroad, and there's different flavors of that. And my approach is to think about the student that I was, hungry for travel, yet never having been on an airplane before. And so thinking about how I can support those students so that they can make that trip possible.
All right, thank you, Gina.
You bet.
And so I am Kristina Guilfoyle. I am the Director of Global Academic Programs at Eastern. So I teach in the intensive English programs for international students, but also support study abroad students and work with Gina in EW Global. And like Gina, travel is sort of in my blood. I love it. When I was a student, I actually did not get a chance to study abroad. I went through school, didn't really know when that opportunity for me was going to happen. And so what I did is finish school and lived abroad for a while. So I kind of did the next best thing. Didn't get a chance to study abroad, but I lived abroad, lived in Japan for about 5 years. And when I was there, I had the opportunity to travel to probably around, I can't even count anymore, 12 or 13 countries. I don't really know, somewhere around there. And so I've absolutely loved it. These pictures here are mostly from Japan because of course, I loved being there and that experience. And we have a lot of students at Eastern who are really interested in our exchange partnerships in Japan and also traveling there for some short-term programs. And so hopefully we'll get a chance to meet you and talk to you about it. So that's me. And next is Cole.
Awesome, thank you. Well, hi everybody, my name is Cole Yankowski. I am an alumni student from Eastern. I got my undergraduate in human resources and I just finished my MBA in healthcare. My kind of first college gig was actually working in the global office. I was a global ambassador. I was an international peer advisor. So part-time, I was helping students, with their international travel plans or helping them, people who are coming through their exchange. And one day I just was like, why am I not doing this? What is holding me back from taking off for a quarter or a semester? So I met with the study abroad advisor at the time, and we just dug into it. And I said, I'm going to do it next winter when it's not great weather here in Chile. I'm going to go somewhere awesome. And a good friend of mine was just came back from Barcelona, Spain, and she just was raving about it nonstop. She wanted to move there. And so I just said, okay, there it is, Spain. I want to go to Spain next year. At that time, I think I was a junior. I was getting a little burnt out on college. So I was like, I need a break. So instead of doing just typical school, like a lot of study abroad students, I did a professional internship. So I was working full time for a couple months, 2 or 3 months there from corporate event management. It was a small company, but the biggest one in Spain. And I got so much cross training experience from that. I shadowed all the departments. People would send their corporates to come do team buildings in Barcelona. So like me and the team I was working with, we would go and manage all that. It was incredible. I mean, everything about it was incredible. While I was in Spain, I traveled. There was so much to do in Barcelona that I thought I was going to travel all over Europe, but I just couldn't because there was so much to do in my backyard, you know. But I went to Sevilla, I went to Lisbon, Portugal, I went to just like 30-minute train ride to Sitges, to the Carnival, which is a huge party, which I've never experienced stuff like that. It was incredible. It flew by, and 3 months was like just not enough. I remember like crying every day my last week because of all the friends I made. And you know, I went solo, but I've made these lifelong friends through that. And like, why study abroad? Why not? I mean, for a couple months to stick around in Chile or go to Europe, you know, it was like a no-brainer. After it was all said and done, I came and had fully planned to move back to Europe with my best friend. And we had our flights booked, our apartments booked, everything. We were just gonna save our monies and just go as long as we can. And then the pandemic happened, so we couldn't. So we had to kind of transition our plans. But yeah, that's my kind of story of it. It was incredible. I can't wait to get back abroad. It's just been a kind of a couple tough years for everyone. So I'm home based right now, but yeah, I can't wait. I can't wait to get traveling again. So it changed my life, and I would see that when I was working in the global office, people come back from abroad and they're just their life was, you know, shifted, and I wanted to know why. And so after that, I can really just relate to that. And yeah, best time of my life. So yeah, it's a little recap my story. Oh, and here the pictures on the left one was in Portugal, and then that was my first day, so totally jet lagged, like haven't slept in 24 hours in Spain. In that second photo, and my office, they sent that with me, of course. That third photo there was we did a hike to these bunkers in Barcelona, and then it was amazing. You could watch the sunset. Those are just some of my friends I made. And then that last photo are just me and some of my coworkers during my internship. So yeah.
All right, thanks, Cole. All right, and I think Sydney is back on here.
Yes, I'm back.
All right.
Hello, I'm Sydney. I'm a current Eastern senior, and I studied abroad in Florence, Italy. That's where I was based, and I was in the fall of 2019, so right before the pandemic happened. And my home base was in Florence, so that photo on the far left, that's me in Florence in front of the Duomo, which is like right downtown. Um, and I went like all over Europe because I was there for like, I think roughly like 4 months. And every weekend, I didn't have class on Fridays. So we had Friday, Saturday, Sunday, like those were all days. And the program that I was with, they actually encouraged us to like kind of leave Florence on the weekends and just go all around Europe because the flights were cheap and the trains were cheap. And they just kind of gave us like that freedom to go do that. And the reason I kind of wanted to study abroad was because I'm born and raised in Spokane, like never left. Cheney is 20 minutes from my parents' house. Like I was just kind of always like just here. And my favorite movie, this is gonna sound really weirdly cliche, but my favorite movie growing up was Mamma Mia. And the movie is like based in Greece and it's all these things. And I told my parents when I was like 8 years old, I was like, I'm gonna go travel one day. And my dad was like, okay. And then I like never dropped the thought. Like it just kept, as I got older and older, I was like, no, I'm still gonna travel. I'm still gonna go. I'm still gonna travel. And then I got kind of like Cole said, like halfway through college, and I was like, okay, so now it's time. And I could be completely honest, like I got cold feet the whole way, like I was so nervous. I cried for the first 2 weeks I was there, and it was scary. Like I won't be the first to say like it's not scary because you're going somewhere by yourself, but the person who I was when I left and the person who I was when I came back, they were two different people, because you don't expect to grow in that little 4-month time span, but all of a sudden, like, you're just there and you're by yourself. And for me, it was kind of like leaving the nest because my entire family's in Spokane. Like, I was just such a homebody, even though in my head I was like, I'm a traveler. But it all just kind of clicked for me when I was there. And again, like Cole said, you're homesick at first. Well, I was homesick. I don't know about Cole, but I was homesick at first. And then by the time I by the time I had to come home, I was like, Mom, Dad, like, can I extend my trip? I know my visa's like up, but I want to extend my trip. But it's just such a whirlwind experience. And I completely recommend it for anybody, even if you're like scared to go, or if you're having like second thoughts about it. I would just say like take that jump, because I know like I had second thoughts. And if I hadn't have done it, like I don't think I would be the person I am today, which in turn brought me to what I'm doing like long term, which is teaching English as a second language, which I never would have discovered was my passion had I not studied abroad and seen the culture and other languages that I saw while I was in Europe. So that's
Can I just kind of highlight a couple of things that Sydney said? I mean, one thing you hear in Sydney's story is going abroad isn't necessarily all perfect, right? I mean, you go through culture shock. Almost all of us do. For me, it's day 12. It does not matter where I am, how long I'm going to be there. Day 12, I have culture shock and homesickness. I mean, they're very real. And yet, if you've got skills and perseverance, you can make it through. And I think what you hear clearly in Cole's and Sydney's stories is it's completely worth it. So one thing parents can do is, if their students are having second thoughts, is to support them with that perseverance and remind them what their goals are. And don't encourage them to get on the plane and come back home, because they'll make it through. They can push through. Just wanted to add that.
That I can 100% agree with that. But after the fact, you don't think about the bad stuff. You missed your flight. God, what was it? I got this stupid rash on my arm and I had to go to the hospital in a foreign language, and it was a whole thing. Like my whole weekend, I had to deal with this stupid rash thing that I got from a beach I was on or whatever. But that stuff, it happens and it's natural. But it when you look back on it, it doesn't matter. The overall experience of it is way beyond the hiccups you experienced through it. But it is definitely a real thing. I had lots of friends that would be crying and calling their friends, and we're like, shut up, let's go to the beach and we'll get through it together. And it really is, yeah, it's special.
And
But homesickness, yeah, that's real.
yeah, it's real. And I'm sorry, I'm going to try to stop talking, but I can't help but highlight something that Cole said, which is he got a rash. He had to go to the hospital. This crazy thing happened. It made me remember something that happened to me in Prague. And I got sick. I got in a taxi. The taxi took me to a hospital. I was trying to explain what my symptoms were. No one spoke English. And then a woman in the waiting room spoke up and said, I studied in Canada, I can help. And she actually helped me get through that experience, get my medicine. She helped me understand that I couldn't pay. No one paid in Prague hospitals. I got her number. And when I was feeling better a few days later, we met so I could buy her lunch. And she told me this amazing story about her family living through Prague Spring. And I mean, I'll just never forget it. It started with illness. The story shouldn't have gone well. And yet even that bad stuff that comes up, if you're open to it, it can just lead to magical experiences, I think.
Oh yeah.
And I'm going to try not to talk.
Sam, the connections that you make. So Gina, I'm sure, I don't know if you're in contact with that woman still, but I think all of us, when we've gone overseas, we've met people that even for a few days that we're still in contact with. And it's been amazing to have those stories and those experiences all over the world. And so that really does make the experience so valuable, right? It's about knowing the world and knowing what other people's experiences are that are outside of our norm. So, which it's a great segue. I mean, we've already been talking about it. Why should you study abroad? I think we've already been touching about the benefits. And then how can it help you achieve your future goals? And so I guess these are just prompts to kind of help everybody discuss these things. And certainly if you have questions, you can ask questions also while we're kind of talking. But does anybody want to share anything else about what benefits, or how has it helped you achieve goals, or how has it shifted your goals?
I'd be more than happy to share. Why study abroad? Why not? I just don't understand, like, other than people just don't really know how to get there, you know? Why not? You know, some places it's required for the students to go abroad for X amount of time, you know, and I wish that was required for everyone, because I just think it would be such more grounded and diverse population potentially. But why study abroad? For me, I did my full-time internship working Monday through Friday, and I can tell you, and this kind of touches to like benefits and future goals as well, that even in like job interviews I've had since then, from my work experience past that, they'd be like, let's talk about that. And I'm like, yes, let's talk about that. We can talk about that the whole time, because that is so cool. I was an international intern. How many international interns have walked through your door this week, you know? So I liked how Sydney said the person that I was before and after is just mind-blowingly different. I want to go traveling once a summer if I can. I want to make those connections. I want to feel push myself outside of my comfort zones, which before maybe I wouldn't have done all this. Yeah, I can go on and on about why study abroad, and it really started for me just getting my first-time job at that global office and just being exposed to the different cultures and backgrounds that were coming through our office at Eastern. So yeah.
I think for me, like I didn't work during my study abroad. Like I was just kind of strictly like going to class and just living that kind of like, oh, let's go do this and let's go do that. Like I didn't have anything like besides school, like my schoolwork that I did while I was there. Like I didn't have to work or anything like that. But the benefits it had for me, like even for my future goals and like my career, it had me like grow up in a way that I didn't know that I needed to grow up. Like I was mature at that point. Like I was 20 years old, so as mature as a 20-year-old can get. But I was 20 and I kind of thought I had everything like figured out. I was like, "Oh, I'm good. Like I'm having fun at Eastern. Like I have a lot of friends. I don't know why I should go do this when I'm like having so much fun at Eastern." And then throughout the 4 months, like I said, there's a lot of like that you're a different person when you come back, which it sounds kind of like, okay, how can you change that much in 4 months? But it's just a different sense of independence and growing up that I didn't know I needed at the time. And I have all my like friends and coworkers always tell me like I'm very outgoing and I like to talk a lot. And the reason being for that is I kind of, when I was studying abroad, like it was scary. It was kind of scary, but also like fun to just put yourself out there and talk to people, like even if it's daunting because maybe it's not like I didn't speak any Italian before I went to Italy, but then I learned a little and I was like, why not try it at the local cafe that's across from where I live and do all this? And I would have never done that before I studied abroad. And the thing is like, I don't even remember the person I was before that because it seems so silly to me that I wouldn't go randomly talk to people or talk a lot. Like, and I think I learned that going to Europe and being in all these places where it was a little intimidating. But then once I started doing it, I couldn't stop talking. Like I literally just couldn't stop. And it just benefited me so much on a personal level in the sense of like the maturity was just a different thing because I was already kind of an adult, but then it was just an adult in a different country by myself. So I had to learn all these different things that I didn't know would actually benefit me when I came home.
All right.
I have a theory about why traveling or specifically study abroad why we develop so much. And one of my theories is because everything is different constantly. The toilet's different, how to work the shower is different, how closely they stand in a line is different, how they signal to each other, how you know it's your turn. I mean, everything is different.
Transportation.
Yeah, it's just all different. And I think what often happens for a lot of us is, we like things the way we like them. We do things the way we do them. And I think our worlds sometimes get a little bit small, like almost as if that's the only way to eat breakfast in the morning. That's the only way to clean your body in the morning. And we get knocked off our center because everything's constantly different, especially that first month or so. Everything is constantly different. And I think part of the reason we develop is because we learn to keep our balance, even when our center has changed a little bit. And I think there's something related to, I think it makes us vulnerable. And I think a lot of people, maybe specifically people in the US, are afraid of being vulnerable, of doing something that kind of, you're not quite sure of yourself. You might look like you don't have the advantage there. And certainly traveling, studying abroad, putting yourself in a different culture, a different country, a different language, you are vulnerable. But I think that's part of that decentering that happens. And Sydney, that's my theory. That's part of what happened for you. And you just like developed and grew so that you had a new kind of center.
And Sydney, do you feel unstoppable now after studying abroad?
I mean, like, yeah, it was funny. Like, you come back and you're on like such a high. Like, you come back and you're like, oh, like this was amazing. Like, I can do a lot. But then I also was like, I need to finish college. Like, I was like,
Well,
I
yeah.
have to actually finish. And it was kind of a lot because I went from doing that then to being in the pandemic. And I was like,
Oh,
6 months ago, I was like off jet setting and doing this. But um for a while, yeah, like it was definitely, it just gave me a sense of confidence that I didn't know that I was capable of. Like, I had no idea that I was capable of like being as confident as I was. Like, there's a quick like little story. When my parents dropped me off at the airport, I was so scared. I was so nervous, like shaking as I was sitting at the Spokane airport, like, and I wasn't even close to going there yet. Like, I was just sitting there and I was so scared. But then when I came home, I had just taken an 11 and a half hour flight, 'cause I was flying home from London. So I went London, San Diego, Spokane. And I got back and my like aunt and my brothers and everyone was there, my parents, and all the bags like went around the carousel like 3 times and I didn't see my bag. And I marched over to the office and I was like, oh, where's the form that I can fill out to have my bag sent to my house or whatever? And my aunt, who studied abroad in the same place I did 25 years earlier, she was like, yeah, I know that you're more independent now. And I said, oh, why? And she was like, 4 months ago, I think you would have stood there with your parents and been like, what do I do? Like, what do I do about my bags? And she told me like the second that I did that, she was like, oh, I knew you were different. Like, I knew you were just coming into yourself and like you were changed. And I had only seen you for like 5 minutes. So.
I didn't think about that coming from study abroad to the pandemic. That would be a lot harder because I had about a year before the pandemic hit. And even though at least a month, I was just kind of like in a funk or depressed or something about the life I was just living, and then I was coming back to reality, right? And really fast, Gina, I wanted to say you're so well spoken. I can listen to you talk about travel all day. I really enjoyed your pieces you were mentioning, but one other thing, just like what are the benefits? I mean, other than just the experience that you won't get in your backyard, the stuff that I can think of top of my head is, all the city tours we did, the museums, the famous art structures we'd see, all the cathedrals. I would walk home from my internship, take a different path, get a little lost. And I'd walk past some Roman wall, those are the things that you can just encounter in your neighborhood, so that's just, I mean, the experience I think alone is huge for what beneficial factors there are for studying abroad.
One thing I don't hear us talking about, and I want to make sure that is part of the conversation because it's so important for a lot of people. A lot of students are choosing to study abroad as heritage seekers right now. And so, for example, we have lots of Latinx students at EWU who either their parents came from Mexico, their grandparents came from Mexico, or perhaps somewhere in Central America, and going back and trying to see what is this place like that my family is from, that I've kind of grown up in a language and a culture that's connected, but I haven't seen the place. That is really important. And that's something that Kristina and I are looking forward to really supporting students with. And so I really wanted to highlight heritage seeking, that's a really important reason for a lot of people.
Right. Well, thanks. I know that all of us have had a lot of really good discussion, but I also want to give the opportunity for people who are here. We may not be needing to self-study abroad. You might already be bought into it. So you probably are here with a lot of questions. And I know probably what's on your mind is what are the next steps? How do we do study abroad? And I might turn this over to you, Gina, because my dog has been barking for the last 5 minutes and I'm not sure she's going to take over this session at any moment in time.
Sure. So I'll use, Kristina created this really nifty graphic. And so I'll kind of loosely use that to walk through. But I'm actually going to start before the graphic. The way I talk to students about thinking about study abroad is before they think about place, to think about what their goals are. And I talk to them about what are your personal goals, your academic goals, and your professional goals. Personal goals, and I really highlight, this really matters. Have you always lived in a rural area and you want to push yourself a little bit and experience what it's like to live in a big city? Or is it more that you, maybe you've even traveled before, but you went to London and you'd really like to experience using a second language that you've been working on, that kind of thing. For academic, what's your dream? What kind of things, what kind of classes would you like to get access to, you can't get access to at EW? Or what kinds of extracurricular activities would help you grow academically that can't happen in Cheney? And then professionally, and I think Cole is the perfect example. And I actually used Cole's story. I ran into Cole a while ago and he told me the story about this international internship and how it switched the table when he was in his interview. And I'd heard that from other students as well. And so I say to students, I just did it twice today. I say to them, in 5 years, when you're speaking with an employer in an interview and it's your dream job, how do you want your study abroad experience to help you get that job? And one thing I want to highlight right there is I know that my parents, when I was growing up, really thought of things like study abroad as pretty selfish and narcissistic and just like tourism. And I really want to emphasize, and I think Cole's a great example, and actually Sydney's story too, her experience led her to her profession, her developing profession, that studying abroad can be an investment, a professional investment, and can really make a difference. So after you've thought about what your goals are, then we have students explore programs. And now you can dream about where do you want to go, and looking at the courses that are offered there and whether or not there are internships. Ever since I've heard stories like Cole's, I suggest to students maybe take one less course and think about doing an internship. So we have them exploring programs. Also, there's so many flavors. Like you can live in essentially a residence hall, or you can live with a family in a homestay. That is such a different experience. And one might help you get to your goals and the other might not. And meet with your academic advisors and tell them what you're dreaming of. And often students do this and their academic advisor will say, oh, you want to go to Ireland? Oh, here's where I went and it's the perfect place for you. Here's who to contact. So So letting them know, and remember, education abroad is part of your educational experience, which means the curriculum needs to fit in with what you are learning. And then moving on to money. How are you going to get the money for this? And one thing people don't realize is if you get financial aid, if your family gets financial aid for you to go to college, that usually there's not that many situations that it won't apply. Most of the time it can apply to your study abroad experience. If you take enough credits, if it's within quarter or across quarters, we can probably make that work. Plus there are scholarships. We have a brand new scholarship, the Ortiz Scholarship, thanks to an alumnus who did study abroad at EW, and she said it changed her life and it really set her up for success in her career. So she gave back. So we just gave away two $1,000 scholarships to 2 students. So we also have a passport and visa scholarship. So if students apply for a passport, renewing their passport or getting a visa, we can cover that. So even small expenses like that can be covered. And there's a lot of other scholarships. And then you apply to the program that you would like to attend. You have 2 applications. You apply to them to go there. You apply to us to send you. And after you've applied with us, then Kristina and I work with you with pre-departure orientations. We make sure that you have your travel insurance through EW, that you know what to do with culture shock. You are signed up with the State Department, so you get alerts if anything happens in country. And we also have ways to contact you as well. And then you're off on your adventure. So that's kind of a whirlwind through. Kristina, can you think of anything I left out of that journey?
Well, I just think I wanted to add, it's never too early to start thinking about it. Like, even if you're like, I'm not really ready, you know, it's my freshman year, I'm just figuring out where my classes are, right? That's not still too early to come talk to us or to an advisor about how it fits into your schedule. It's great. We'll be able to try and give you some options to think about, to process, and who knows how your perception of traveling abroad might change also. And you might want to change where you're thinking of going your freshman year. Once you're in your classes in your major, you might think of some other options that are out there. And so keeping that conversation going will kind of help find your path and kind of have your dream, right, of where you want to go. So that's kind of what I wanted to add there.
Yeah, and that made me think of one program that Kristina and I would like to implement very soon is for our students that we send overseas, especially those who've received scholarships. What we'd like to ask from them is to mentor another student who is getting ready to go abroad. I've actually had 2 students this year ask if we have such a program. And I was glad they suggested it because we will soon. We'll put that into place. But I think that's another, one thing I want to highlight is you can study abroad at any university that you attend. And as Kristina and I have gotten to know the education abroad advisors across the state, they're all lovely people, but they're working with different students and they're very much hands-off. And Kristina and I are really working closely with each student. There's no bad questions. It's never too early to start, as Kristina said. And we're glad to support students with whatever they need help with.
Yeah, and one more thing before we get into questions is virtual opportunities. And sorry, you might hear Ripley back there, my dog barking. But so maybe Gina, you can talk more about the virtual opportunities that are out there. But if you know, finances are something that, you know, can impact your plans, there are virtual international opportunities available for our students.
Yeah, so many students at EW are place bound for various reasons, right? They might have documentation issues. They might have a family. They might need to care for a family member. It's simply maybe resources. And so we can arrange for international internships, for example. And we can also connect students with taking courses virtually. And something that we would like to implement at the university, or I say we, I'm not sure Kristina completely buys into it, but I'm all in. And that is something called COIL, Collaborative Online International Learning. And this is when in just regular classes at EW, professor would partner up with a professor at a university overseas. And there's a few things that make the partnership work. One is they have to get along. That's one thing we found out. Another thing is that they have to have a shared class learning objective. And then what they do is the classes are separate until about week 5. And in week 5, the students are brought together on Zoom like we are today, or on something else. And the students learn together. And then they are given a task to carry out. They're put in cross-cultural groups across the 2 universities. And then they are tasked with carrying out this activity. And one thing I love about it is it's this idea that when we bring students together across cultures, languages, countries, expectations, that if they really communicate, we can come up with new ideas that no one else would have ever had. And so I really love that flavor of COIL. And so they're usually just flash in the pan experiences, like 2 weeks in the middle of a quarter. And it's something I'd really like to do with professors at EW, is to get them to build these in. And I think taking little steps like that might help students eventually have the courage that Cole and Sydney did to actually go abroad. Kristina, are you there?
Yes, and
Okay.
I think my little one is silent now. But so Robin and Dora, you've listened to all of us talk for the last 40 minutes. I hope that's been pretty useful, you know, as an overview for education abroad. But what questions do you have specifically, if there are any, that we haven't touched upon?
I think you've answered mine. Yeah, how do I get my daughter to buy in? Because she told me if I bug her too much, she's just not going to do it. Or how can I? I'd love to go, but yeah, no. Like,
Robin, you know, a lot of parents, they make a trip, they go over and visit their kids, sometimes at the very end of the visit or in the middle. Yeah.
No, definitely. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and I think there has been conversation where we've talked about community members possibly being able to go on some trips. And so that would be an option as well to kind of offset the cost for students.
Yeah.
So my daughter is thinking she's thinking of going into education. My husband and I teach too. Are there ample programs for like elementary education? Obviously, she's not going into business or, you know, anything like that, but is there a rich enough experience in sending her over to something?
You know, I think the education department is so excited when their pre-service teachers have overseas experiences for so many reasons. And I think that first of all, it would really, you probably know this as a teacher yourself, it would really be a wonderful talking point when she's in interviews with principals, superintendents. But I also know that EW is struggling a little bit, as I think probably related to the pandemic, with getting all the pre-service teachers the practicum hours that they need. And so we've actually begun talking about creating overseas study abroads where the pre-service teachers would do practicums like intensively in 3 weeks, like so 40 hours a week, right? Over 3 weeks. In fact, Kristina and I were just in a meeting with someone who's looking at setting up a program in Barcelona. I reached out to education to see if they'd be interested in partnering for practicums for their students, and they loved the idea. So yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of excitement in education for her.
Okay. And you said, you know, it's not too early to come in and talk. At what point during their schooling do most people do a study abroad experience?
I would say, You know, we have quite a few juniors come in. I think at that point they're coming in to you know, they finally have decided that it's time, or that they have enough for credits that they can use study abroad. Although this past year, I think the pandemic has really changed things, and I think we're seeing students from all ranges at this point in time. I think people are also really ready to go out and experience things. I mean, we've had people, they're already a freshman, it's their first year, and they're like, yeah, you know, I'm ready to go this summer. You know, I need to get out of here. So I think the perception has changed. Traditionally, it has been generally skewed older students.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd say that go, but we've certainly had students think early on in the process.
Yeah. Where is she in her education program?
Well, she's a freshman and she wasn't
Okay.
quite certain what she was wanting to go into. It was theater originally, and now she doesn't feel that stable enough with the pandemic that laid things bare. So she's just deciding that she's going to go into education. So she feels like she's behind. I've told her, you know, don't worry about it. You're not behind. Just do what you need to do. That's, you know, but she's just, so she hasn't really started the education program itself.
You know, for her, the earlier she did study abroad, the better. Because
Okay.
once she steps into that education sequence, it's lockstep and you can't step out.
Yeah.
And one of the things that she'll have to do before she gets accepted into the program is to complete a minimum of 30 hours of multicultural experience.
Mhm.
And that she could, for example, let's say she chose Italy to go to. If she chose a program that also could arrange for internships, they could place her in, say, an elementary school, and she could actually achieve her 30 multicultural hours while she's overseas. So I would say for her, the earlier, the better.
So I'll be encouraging her to come in and see you. Is there anyone in your office in the summer?
We're all there.
Okay,
Yeah.
because I know she and
Yeah.
I are going to be on campus for orientation. So we may pop in there. Then I'll have her.
That would be lovely. It'd be nice to
Okay.
meet you.
Okay, that sounds great.
And Robin, I just wanted to praise you for supporting your daughter to study abroad. A lot of parents dig their heels and they're worried to let their kid go out there and experience something like that. So that's really cool of you to be so supportive, I think.
Oh, no. I'd put her on the plane and send her now if I could.
My mom had the same exact conversation with me. Like I would get so mad at her. I'd be like, because she was the one like really pushing it, because I had talked all my life about how I wanted to go abroad. And then I stopped as soon as I got in. And she was really the one that was like pushing. And I was like, Mom, like, I'm not gonna go. Like, I don't want to talk about it anymore. And then finally, she was like, so game time decision, like, are you gonna go? And I was like, I guess. And she, like, her and I would butt heads about it all the time. And then, of course, when I got over there, I bawled like a baby because I was so culture shocked.
Mhm.
And then it, like, oddly enough, like, strengthened our relationship because it was that, like, push and pull. And then finally at the end, she was like, see, and I was like, okay, I get it. Like, and she never even went abroad. She was just like, you must go do this.
Yeah.
Mhm.
No, we've traveled as a family quite a bit, but I'd like her to have the experience to go and do it on her own and learn that, you know, just experience that whole thing.
Sometimes it's hard too, at least from what I've witnessed, of students like don't want to leave their friends at the university and they feel like they're going to miss out. And that is so real. But at the same time, like Sydney and Cole were both just saying, like, you meet so many more people and you get to come home with these stories and these experiences that your friends who stayed in Cheney didn't. And like, not that it's a comparison, but like, it truly just, it's 1 quarter or 1 semester, like it's a few months and you'll be back with your friends and you can like entertain them for a lifetime of stories.
Yeah, it's the friends that are missing out. It's not the person going. Absolutely.
Any other burning questions?
Ripley has one.
Yeah,
Go
my
on.
God.
I have one. Hi, I have one question.
Yeah, go ahead, Dora.
For example, my son, he was on Running Start and he withdrew for 1 year because he said that there was no classes online and he didn't want to go to the university yet. So my question is, can he go straight to Japan if he enrolls EWU? He took a class where he chose marketing and communication. I mean, is there any advantage of he going there? I mean, to learn more advanced knowledge, you know, besides of what we have here?
Kristina, do you want to address this one?
Yeah, so there is an advantage, especially in the business arena, because there's a lot of internships. Actually, we were just speaking with a student, I think was it last quarter, I think, Gina, about an internship in Japan. And again, sorry. And basically making those international connections, learning how those other businesses work. And then also, of course, when he goes off into the workforce, if he goes into a company that works with other international companies, learning how to deal culturally, even through meetings or how to talk to them with email etiquette, all of that experience will be influential in that interview process when he applies for a job. So, and Gina, I know you spoke to a student about that internship. Do you recall the details on that Japanese internship? It has to do with business and marketing.
Yeah. I don't remember many details except the student's going to be there about 6 months actually, and is very excited about it. It is business, but it also, it's marketing. His minor is journalism. And so the internship is going to include all those pieces. He's very excited. And I wanted to add something, just like Kristina said, there's all these soft skills you get when you experience an internship or taking classes in a different country. You start to, like Kristina said, you know, the way emails are put together is different. How direct you are in what you add and how you ask for something is different. And I think sometimes people think that if you go to Japan, if that's the country you go to, that what you walk away from is just an understanding, you know, whether it's shallow or deep of Japanese culture. I think something else happens. I think our brains change and we start to realize, oh, everybody asks for things, but they're on a spectrum of how direct or indirect they are. And, you know, and here's where we are in our family culture, and here's where they are in Japan. And I think it opens us up so we're more nimble and flexible with everybody. So better with customers and colleagues and everyone that we work with. So Dora, I think there's great things that can be gained by experiencing that studying in a different country.
I was gonna ask, do you have any recommendations of the universities they have? Because they would like to be not in the city. They want to be far away from the city, just more like you know, less people, less crowded.
Dora, has your son studied Japanese?
No, but well, at least I researched for visas and all that. But I thought, well, I don't know if they go study straight to a university there for whatever years they want and come back, if they're going to be able to work here with that degree they got there. So to me, the best choice for me, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I was thinking they go through you guys and then come back and continue, and like that is accepted here. And if he wants to work there, you know, with the visa, work visa or whatever it's called, then they can go there, you know. But I want him to have both options in case he changes his mind. You know,
Dora, I think you're absolutely right. So, and I love that you just highlighted the difference between getting a degree overseas versus studying abroad. Studying abroad means you're an EW student and that you, for part of your time overseas, that you spend part of that time overseas, but you get an EW diploma. And yet there's another option, which is simply to study at a university overseas. But you just highlighted the problem. The problem is that that diploma may not be recognized in the same way, right, in the US. So Dora, I think you're right. So working through EW, doing study abroad, and doing study abroad in Japan, if that's his choice. And there are universities in Japan that if you arrive without knowing Japanese, it absolutely won't work. And then there's universities that have lots of classes in English, plus they teach intensive Japanese.
Yeah, I have been researching, and they actually, they said they even give scholarships to study like for 1 year intensive Japanese.
Yeah.
And then after that, you get enrolled in the regular classes that you want.
Yeah.
But I was wondering if EW, you can do it. I mean, allow him to go and study his intense Japanese over there, and then continue with his courses and come back and, finish marketing and communication, however he wants, or however you guys allow him to. I don't know how many semesters he allowed to be there.
So actually, Dora, I would have a suggestion. So if he's interested in studying Japanese, he should probably enroll as soon as he registers for, I'm sure he's registered for classes already, but in the Japanese courses at Eastern, because what he can do is after he's in those classes, we have these partnerships where we take nominations for students to study abroad for a semester. He'd have the opportunity to get nominated and actually go to Japan for a semester to kind of get his foot in the door and kind of that experience at a Japanese university, but still get credits with Eastern. And also one of our partners has some classes in international business that would really benefit him. So he'd be taking that intensive English. He could take some business classes that would go toward a marketing or business degree at Eastern. And it would, and then he can kind of go from there and decide. But that would probably give him the best opportunity.
Okay, and then my other son wants to go too, but he's almost done with accountant. On the next fall, he's gonna be done. But I've been encouraging to get a master's degree and then a doctorate, But he said that he would like to go to Japan with my other son. So they want to go together. So I guess my youngest son is gonna wait for his oldest son, my oldest son, to finish.
Yeah.
So they go together, but I'm wondering if in the same university can they get in there, together, because both of them are for business. And what other branches are there that he can get more advanced in, business management? Because that's what it is, right? It starts with business management and a focus on accounting. He didn't know if to choose accounting or finance. And he mentioned another time that one you just mentioned, international affairs or whatever it's called. And so I don't know if it's any of those that he can take over there. Has a master's degree, I don't know.
That one, I'd probably have to do some research as far as our partners and what they have for master's programs. I don't know, Gina, if you recall of any.
We are talking right now with a university in Japan that all of their business classes are taught in English. So I do think, Dora, there's a possibility of finding a graduate program where the classes are taught in English.
Do you know?
Do you recall the university's name?
No, I have a horrible memory.
Was it the one in Mie, Gina, that you're thinking of? Was it Mie University?
I think it might have been Mie. Okay. Yeah, Mie University.
Yeah,
that might be the one.
And so that one's a little bit further through from the one that I was thinking about for your undergrad student, which was TMU, Tokyo Metropolitan University. But something that I kind of want to get back to, you mentioned small school, kind of countryside. That's something else to think about too. We don't have, I think the closest to a smaller school that's sort of more country is Kobe. Kobe University. We're partners with them, and it's a kind of a big city, but more of a small town feeling. I like to call that area of Japan sort of the west side of the US. Tokyo is like the East Coast, and New York. So there's that sort of the feel, like if you're looking at places for your sons and you kind of want a really slow pace, sort of low key, small community, I'd be looking at sort of what we call the Kansai area in Japan. So that would probably be more fitting if you're looking at that small town sort of feel.
But the best one for learning business is the MBA.
We'd have to check, Dora. And, there's lots of other programs besides the ones we've mentioned. We work with what are called third-party providers. So they're companies that what they do is they create study abroad experiences at universities around the world. And then the universities like us that they partner with, our students are allowed to participate in those programs. And many of those programs have programs all across Japan. And so there's lots of other options. Any chance that your son or sons would contact us?
Well, the truth, they don't even know I'm talking to you right now.
Tell you what, you reach out to us, Dora. See our emails at the bottom. You write to us and we'll tell you what we know.
Thank you. Yeah, they think they know it all, it's 18 and the other 21, but I'm like, no, you don't know everything. Yeah, I think that people that knows about education knows better. And I told them I just spent like 8 hours reading in the immigration website about scholarships, visas, work visas, student visas. So I know more than you. And they said, oh, no, I know more than you. I've been researching for 2 years. And I'm like, really? But, they have been watching Japanese anime since they were 5. So they might know more than I think.
Well, Dora, I hate to say that anime usually isn't the best way to learn about the universe.
Okay, so they don't know much.
But I can say though that if they are super interested and invested, taking those courses, like I said, in Japanese at Eastern, will kind of be their gateway. And also, if they get nominated with our exchange partners, they would just pay EWU tuition. So they would not be paying a different fee. It's an exchange. They're paying our tuition. All they're paying for is their housing when they're overseas and their plane ticket. So there's a distinct advantage with doing an exchange partnership.
Okay, I can write all that to tell my husband. Yeah, he's working out of the state, so I don't want to, tire him with all this. So, okay. And you said it's a nomination. How is that nomination based on?
So usually there's an interest coming from the student, and they will talk to the professor about, I want to study abroad, and they'll put in a recommendation letter. And so, of course, sometimes there's several students that are competing, but if they don't get the first nomination, usually we can nominate a student every semester. So they will have many opportunities. And frankly, the partners that we work with are willing to take at least sometimes 2 students a semester. So there's a lot of opportunity there. So if a class of 20 students, maybe there's only 3 or 4 that are interested, and that could be staggered. So I don't know of many students who've been rejected for their nominations, as long as they're doing well, their teacher recommends it. Certainly sometimes there's a student that's number 1 that'll go first, for the first slot, but there's still an opportunity. And if they're starting out their freshman year and saying, telling the teacher, I want to go, there's certainly plenty of opportunity for them to get nominated during their 4 years at Eastern.
But you say he needs to take first Japanese for 1 year.
Yes, not necessarily for 1 year, but that would probably make sense if they're entering the fall semester. So yeah, in fact, that's going to be the students that are nominated almost, I think always are in Japanese class if they're planning on going to Japan.
Okay.
And I really highly recommend it, because it's very, very hard to go in with little Japanese for the first year, and there's intensive English programs. I know they say that anybody can go, But it's very, very useful to have a little bit of Japanese under your belt before you travel there.
Okay, okay. Well, I'm gonna talk to them and see. I'm just gonna look for probably the right time to tell them what I just did. Talking to you guys about it. And I think I'm gonna wait for my husband until the end of the month so he can come back and we talk together as a family, and see what are their goals and what they really want.
Well, and Dora, you'll have a link to this video, I'm sure, if you need some support.
Thank you. But I will be sending you more questions. I just need to rewrite them because English is my second language, and I feel like they are not good. You might get confused reading them.
It'll be just fine. Don't
Is that
worry.
okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm gonna consult my husband on those questions because he sent some, but the questions he sent, they are too short and I don't know what he was referring to, but I copy and paste what he wrote to you on that email. But thank you so much. I will be in contact with you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dora.
You have a great rest of the day.
You too. And
Thank you.
before we go to, I want to just kind of plug another program that we have that's not just education abroad, but our National Student Exchange Program. And so what that is for students who aren't quite ready to go overseas, but they might be willing to go to a different state. So we do have so that's another opportunity for students where they can attend another university. That's one of our partners in the National Student Exchange. They go to that university, they pay Eastern tuition or their tuition, depending on, the costs and their benefits. But they pay Eastern tuition, go over to another state, get credits that will go toward their degree, or take credits that they may not have available here at Eastern. So they might be interested in something that another university offers. But it's a great opportunity for students who are kind of hesitant and might be like, hey, I can do this. Like, I can go to Florida and take classes here. I might be able to go someplace else outside of the US because it's kind of a different culture here in Florida.
Yeah, well, they really want to go, so they are no hesitant at all. I think I was the one crying for 3 days.
Yeah, well, that's great that they're ready to go. And I think there's not a lot of students that are just always gung-ho about that. So, it's great that you're supporting them, both you and Robin. I think that's amazing. And then Robin, you've got the hesitant students, so that's always interesting. You both have different problems here.
Yeah. And
my husband doesn't want them to go though.
Just to highlight really quickly with the National Student Exchange, they've found that students experiencing a different region of the US, or you can also go to Canada, you can go to US territories. You can experience culture shock. You can have very similar learning that happens. And it is, if you take Canada off the list, students, if they need to work while they're in university, just like I did, they can continue to work. So it can be available to students who are more resource challenged. And for those students who are DACA students or there's other documentation issues, they're not leaving the US again if you take Canada off the list. So it really does open up the experience to more groups.
Do you have anything for Portland, Oregon?
I think we do have a university in Portland.
Yeah, I think so. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm gonna mention that to my husband about the culture.
Good. Yeah, in fact, if you write to us, we can send you a map that has all 175 universities.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and I just put it's nse.org is their website too, so you can find
it's fantastic.
On that. Mm-hmm.
Okay, that will be great. Thank you so much.
Yeah. All right, any other questions? All right, well, thank you, everyone. Special thanks to Cole and Sydney. It's always amazing to hear your stories and, so thankful that you guys were able to come and speak on your experience, and hopefully other people watching this will get inspired.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me and Cole, but both of us.